Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think they're having a big concert in Brooklyn, so we have a more intimate gathering here. And everyone here is devotee, so I'll say in opening that today's an auspicious day. Today is Lord Varaha Appearance Day. Is one of the Das Avatar, one of the important incarnations of Krishna. And this is coming to the, if you even look outside, even above and beyond the buildings, you'll see the moon is waxing fuller and fuller. So tomorrow is the Trayodasi, the 13th day of the month of Magh, which is a holy month, one of the most spiritually potent months of the year to make advancement. And I don't think coincidentally it comes in the wintertime. It says one place in the Bhagavad-gita that you don't hesitate to take your cold bath in the month of Magh, man of duty. So tomorrow, the Trayodasi, is the appearance day of the Lord Nityananda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahiyanya, Parama Karuna Pahu Dvijana Nitai Gaurachandra. We understand that Krishna, he expands himself as Balaram, and from Balaram come all of the incarnations. So, Lochin Das Thakur says, Saba Avatar Sarasaromani Kevala Anandakanda, that Sri Sri Gaurnitai are the essence of all incarnations. They're the same Brajendra Nandana say, Sachi Sutta Hoilo say, Balaram Hoilo Nitai, coming again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. And all of their eternal devotees of Brajadam incarnated with them. And we're so very lucky and fortunate that not only on this planet they came, that the planet that we're on right now, but Prabhupada says even in the first canto, part 1, within the memory of everyone. It's like, okay, what were you doing 5 days ago? What were you doing 5 weeks ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago? What were you doing 500 years ago? So, in recent times, in recent memory, how time goes. One day of Lord Brahma, one of our days, what to speak of one of our nights, 12 hours of our day. It's not like a huge, like, you part with somebody in the morning, I'll see you tonight. It's not like it's a real big deal, right? But one day of Lord Brahma is 4,300,000,000 earthly years. So the Lord appears once in the day of Lord Brahma. And when the Lord appears, he also comes as the covered incarnation, or let's say extra special incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the next Kali Yuga. So that just happened. So we're very, very fortunate. And especially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's coming in the mood, he's Krishna, but he's coming in the mood of a devotee of Krishna. So Balaram, as he is the first expansion of Krishna, he is the source of the mood and feeling of servitorship towards Krishna, which is actually the secret to all happiness. See, in this material world, everyone wants to try to be an imitation god or color. And I think we read in one place, he's always in trouble. Right? The mind is never disturbed. The mind is always disturbed. It's always, and because I'm trying to be the biggest person and the other person's trying to be the biggest person, so there's competition. So Lord Nityananda, he is distributing the mood of servitorship to Krishna in a very, very merciful way. And of course, it goes on to say that their process is so nice that simply by accepting the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, along with dancing, you can read in the Nectar of Devotion, one of the 64 items of regulative devotional service and practice, one should learn to dance before the deity. So dancing and chant. This Kali Yuga is described as an ocean of faults. Does everyone have very good realization? We're trying to be spiritual, we're trying to be good, and we're trying to be devotees of Krishna, and we're practically having to swim upstream against a very strong current coming downstream. Row, row, row your boat. Life is but a dream, merrily, merrily, right, everybody? And we're just standing alone against it. It's very, very difficult. And we have some realization just what all of these terrible activities that people are engaged in, gross and subtle, what it is leading to them after they leave their body. It's practically, that's one of the reasons why people keep themselves in such ignorance and irresponsibility of spiritual life and trying to cultivate who is my relationship with God. Is there God? Who is God? What should I do? Because even just a little beginning of that understanding, they would shudder at the thought of, the reactions they have to face for all of what they're doing. So in this ocean of faults, when it's so difficult to find true virtue, and what to speak of once you find it, try to keep it pure from the onslaught of the forces of this age of Kali, that, what is it? Kalir dosa nade rajan, asti ek mahadguna, kirtanadeva krishnasya, mukta sangha param bhajet. This is Shukadeva Goswami's concluding words to Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was given a 7-day death notice. He was cursed to be bitten by a poisonous snake bird and die within 7 days. So he gave up everything, even eating and drinking and sleeping, and he sat down on the bank of the Ganges, and all the great sages and elite spiritual personalities at the time gathered there, and he asked them, what is the duty? What is my duty? What is the duty of everyone, and especially the duty of a man just on the threshold of death? They couldn't come to a unanimous agreeing decision until finally Shukadeva Goswami came, and he said that you should utilize the remainder 7 days of your time, which is very good that you have this notice, because you can, in the next 7 days, you can do everything required to make complete perfection to achieve the highest position, going back to God. And the answer was hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. This is true for everyone, no matter what condition or position of life they're in. How much pious or impious activities they performed previously, anything. This is the answer. So finally, after reciting the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, coming to the end of the 12th canto, he said, my dear king, although this Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there's still one good quality which supersedes all the bad of this world, which makes it even better than even the best of ages, like Satya Yuga, where everyone was practically a Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa is the final mature stage of self-realization to be adored by all members of human society. Everyone was like that. Even better than that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one can achieve Braja Prema Bhakti and go back to, as Prabhupada directed, to have here on the wall, Goloka Vrindavan, and join their lordships, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, as Prabhupada purports Narottam Das Thakur's prayer to Lord Nityananda, Heno Bine Nitai Bai Radha Krishna Pahinai, that you cannot go back to Godhead and worship the Lord in the topmost way unless you achieve the mercy of Lord Nityananda first. And the goal of this Krishna consciousness movement is to enter into the confidential dancing party of the Lord and join with him in his sublime pleasure dance. So Lord Nityananda is freely distributing this topmost facility, and the price is simply only one's faith. That faith is created in association with devotees who are similarly interested to achieve the ultimate goal of life, hearing and chanting the authorized shastras, and by engaging in the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna and distributing it to as many living entities as possible. So that is Lord Nityananda. Of course, he is with us every day, every moment of all eternity, but for the sake of celebration and commemoration, like this weekend is President's Weekend. That's not such a big thing for us, you know. Where is Abraham Lincoln and George Washington now? Just on the dollar bill or the $5 bill or on the statue, but where is their soul? But Lord Nityananda is the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead, and we celebrate his appearance day and pray for strength. Particularly, Prabhupada taught us to pray to Lord Nityananda and Lord Balaram, give me strength to carry out the instructions of the authorized spiritual teachers and be very strong and give it my very best effort. Give this whole life to Krishna consciousness. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Balaram Ki Jai. So, we're reading from the Bhagavad-gita in the 18th chapter, and starting on verse number 4. So the chapter begins, looking back, a little summary. Arjuna wanted to understand what is the actual purpose of renunciation and the renounced order of life. And is understood by people in general, renunciation means giving things up. Renounce, I give it up, or I stop doing something, or I give something away. Verse 2, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what learned men call the renounced order of life, and giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation. So, stopping things based on what you want to do, based on thinking that you are this material body or subtle material mind in forgetfulness of your eternal identity as a servant and lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those types of desires should be given up. But it's very much clearly made throughout the Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that can be done by accepting spiritual desires to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. If Krishna and his devotees are pleased, then you have actually pleased yourself. You've done the best thing for your own self-interest, and the beauty of that is that it's simultaneously the best thing for everyone else. Like people walking around in the material conception of life, you know, if I get all of them, I have to get as much money as possible. And to do that, that means other people have to have less money and less facility, less fame, less beauty, less opulence, less knowledge or education. I have to be best. So when one performs activities to please Krishna, who is the soul of everyone's soul and the root of the cosmic, of everything in this cosmic manifestation, it's likened unto pouring water on the root of a tree. When you pour water on the root of a tree, then that one action automatically satisfies and nourishes the entire tree. The big trunk, all the different limbs, branches, twigs, and all the unlimited leaves are automatically satisfied by pouring water on the root. One who is satisfied Krishna is no longer a debtor to anyone in human society because that action is automatically distributed throughout the entire cosmic manifestation. So real renunciation means to practice like that, and the actual renounced order is not so much a formal acceptance of a dress or a status or a title, but actually making one's consciousness firmly fixed in that way. That is called pure devotional service, and that is actually the goal of life, love of Godhead. And that is actually available and recommended for everybody, no matter what their external status is. And yes, last week, some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty, yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. And last week, the purport included that many different sages or spiritual personalities, they'll have different opinions. And now this is the prelude to verse 4, where we'll begin today. All these different opinions on spiritual sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. So we'll say the word for word together for verse number 4. Tacha in the matter of renunciation. Bharata Sattama, O best of the Bhartas. Yaga, renunciation. He, certainly. Prusha Vyagra, O tiger among human beings. Trivida, of three kinds. Samprakirtita is declared. O best of the Bhartas, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds. Please repeat. O best of the Bhartas, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds. Purport. Although there are differences of opinion about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. After all, the Vedas are different laws given by the Lord. Here the Lord is personally present, and his word should be taken as final. The Lord says that the process of renunciation should be considered in terms of the modes of material nature in which they are performed. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Jayatam Sarato Pangur Mama Mandama Tergati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Brindaranya Kalpajumada Srimad Ratnagara Singha Sanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Vestalabi Savyamano Sarami Sriman Rasa Rasarambi Bamsi Bhatta Tatasti Taha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinatha Shri Estuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charan Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at the feet of the Transcendental Lord. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshatarane. Obeisances unto you, O Master, O servant of Saraswati Goswami, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. You are so kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and are delivering these Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Nischayam Shrinume Tatra Tyage Bharata Satnama Tyago Hi Prusha Yagra Trivida Samprakirtita. O best of the Bhartas, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds. When Srila Prabhupada came here to 26 Second Avenue, even the scholars, they remark what an amazing thing that it was. No institutional support. Even the government of India was going to stop them. You were invited by a private man for 1 month. If you were invited by an institution, we would give, but we cannot accept it. Somehow, Prabhupada said, I want to see your superior. And that superior was the head man of the State Bank of India at the time, had met Prabhupada previously. I found this out. It's not in Lilamrita. There's a fact, and Prabhupada is speaking in his garden in Los Angeles, 1976, is giving a detailed account of what he had to do to come here and all the obstacles. So don't worry, Swamiji, I've passed your case. So he comes and he ends up here, didn't make a plan, and bumps into Hare Prabhu on Bowery and Houston Street, which is where I think the end of the Christie Garden is. There's like like a block away. And Hayagriva had been to India with his buddy Keith, Kirtanananda, and he goes, wow, are you from India? And Prabhupada goes, yes. And you, are you from India too? Anyway, they struck up a conversation. Oh, I'm over here at 26 Second Avenue. Oh, I have my friends. Well, bring your friends. And they were like eclectic maniacs, studying everything, and just mixing it all up, like Whitman, Thoreau, Buddhist readings, other names that were like in vogue at the time. And when anybody had a new realization on an LSD trip, then the whole thing was subject to complete, re-evaluation amongst everybody. And so these were the people who came in and heard Prabhupada for the first time. And their immediate realization, Prabhupada was convinced that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You even hear in their memoirs that he never said, I thought, or maybe, or possibly. He was so much convinced, and it just knocked them out. Krishna had such faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and what's mentioned here, his word should be taken as final. If you read in the Nectar of Devotion, it gives a gradation in the beginning of the different stages, the neophyte, the intermediate, and the topmost. The topmost devotee, he has absolute faith that Krishna is so elevated that he can defeat any opposing argument against it by citing various shastras. And that was Srila Prabhupada. And that's how he built this movement. Actually, Prabhupada was, of course, racing against time to translate his books, and especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, all 18,000 verses, beginning at the age of 70. So Prabhupada was in Boston for the whole month of May 1968. He was staying in a rented house some 8 blocks from the storefront temple on Glenville Avenue. Prabhupada was walking back and forth to the temple maybe twice a day. Sometimes a cab was being ordered for him. So all the devotees would follow Prabhupada after the full morning program and the class that Prabhupada gave. And Prabhupada was giving more darshan and more nectar and instruction in his room. And Govinda Sundar was Prabhupada's secretary, and she was very concerned that Prabhupada wasn't getting enough time for translating his books, and and she made a complaint to Satsvarup Maharaj, who was the temple president at the time, and Satsvarup, who wasn't a Maharaj at the time, took it very seriously. Oh, Prabhupada staying in Boston is inconvenient. So he told all the devotees that what we're going to do, we'll accompany Prabhupada back to his house, and then we will simply pay obeisances and we will not accompany him in. So all the devotees were very sad to hear this, and they followed that instruction. And Prabhupada, he got to the house, and it was like 3 steps to walk up to the front porch and then go inside. And Prabhupada looked back, and he just kind of like cocked his head, like, let's go, and everybody just scampered upstairs with him like little puppies, very happy, And Satsvarup Maharaj, he was like, so maybe after like 15 minutes, he thought, okay, I have to do something. So then he just like paid obeisances. There was like a little pause in Prabhupada's, and he said, we will leave you now to let you do your work. And Prabhupada looked at him like he was very presumptuous and, even like, like an offensive, says, work? You don't think I'm working now? You don't know what work is. And Prabhupada talked on, In other words, his work was convincing his disciples and convincing everyone. So, and Prabhupada's Bhagavad-gita is such a masterpiece of convincing others. I know myself, the Bhagavad-gita convinced me to become a devotee. Anyone else have that experience? Right. So, so now when Krishna, there's 2 types of Krishna Katha: words spoken by Krishna and words spoken about Krishna by his authorized devotees. So Bhagavad-gita with Prabhupada's purports are both mixed together, power-packed. Krishna is speaking, and he's saying himself, my judgment should be taken as final. And Prabhupada is saying the same thing. The second class devotee in the Nectar Devotion, he has absolute resolve that Krishna consciousness, love of Godhead, is the absolute goal of his life, but he might not be as expert in presenting opinions to atheists and to other people who might challenge him. But his faith cannot be shaken, even by atheistic arguments. But by practice, he'll come to the topmost position, which is what we're meant to come to also. Certainly we don't want to be on the neophyte platform. The neophyte, he says that the Krishna consciousness is very good, but if someone offers opposing arguments, then he'll lose his faith and go away. So we don't want to be on that platform, certainly. Here the Lord is personally present, and his word should be taken as final. So by practicing throughout our life, applying the principles of Krishna consciousness as spoken directly by Krishna and seeing that they work and seeing what happens to others or even ourselves if we don't follow those principles, then our faith is increased. Now, one of the moving videos we have of Srila Prabhupada speaking, it's on the Acharya series, and then recently again in Yadu Bar and Vishaka's 11 DVDs. Prabhupada is speaking to a professor in his room in Los Angeles. Prabhupada is sitting low on his cushion behind his desk, and the scholar is sitting on a chair, and he has like a white shirt, young man, like in his 30s or early 40s. And Prabhupada is stressing to him very firmly how one must rise above the modes of material nature to be able to understand spiritual knowledge, to understand God. And that's what's now being brought about, that why people do things or their conception, in this particular case of renunciation, is based on the 3 modes of material nature. The soul by nature is pure. When he enters into the material world, the modes of material nature are likened unto a spark either falling on water, green grass, or dry grass. Falling on water is like falling in the mode of ignorance. The fiery quality of the soul is completely extinguished. Falling on green grass is like the mode of passion. It's smoky, it's hazy, but there's some type of activity, and it could be, if handled properly, be elevated. Whereas, in other words, the green grass, by not getting new water put in it, in other words, the other example is like, say it's summertime and we have a fan spinning, it's plugged into the electricity. That is likened unto someone not breaking the chain of fruitive activities and material desires and continually engaging in non-devotional activities one after the other. Whereas one coming as a new practitioner to Krishna consciousness, he has stopped the electric current. He has stopped performing sinful and material activities, which Prabhupada and Krishna have summarized as 4: illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. And by pulling the plug on that, then the blade, the movement of the on the fan, which was from the previous current, is still spinning. Especially if you have a big industrial fan, it's like, it's kept in a cage because you don't want to stick your finger in it because it could, So just don't plug it back in, and very shortly it'll stop completely. So because no new energy is being put into it. So by stopping our activities in the modes of material nature, and by following the direction of the pure devotees, we regain our original fiery nature, which is ultimately the mode of goodness and beyond, the spark going on dry grass, which the spark should remain in the fire, but if it goes onto the dry grass, it doesn't extinguish its fiery quality, and it can go back into the fire. I'm going to keep going. Any questions thus far? You don't have to have any if you don't have any, because I want to keep going. But if you do, you can ask.
The dry grass thing, you said if the spark goes on dry grass, it doesn't extinguish its fiery quality?
No.
The
danger of it, the danger of it, the danger of its fiery quality being extinguished is much less than if it goes on the green grass, and what to speak of the water. So the mode of goodness is not the final position. There's many people, you could say, in the mode of goodness, they want to keep their house very clean, or they don't drink, or they're vegetarian, and they're involved in humanitarian, but they're not necessarily devotees, but they're in a good position to become devotees. Sometimes the false pride is there that I'm a man or woman in the mode of goodness, I'm better than others. So, mode of goodness is best, but because it's material, still, it's not. Prabhupada, early on, he was invited to speak at a society for vegetarians, and Prabhupada said, "Do they want to hear about Krishna consciousness?" "No, they just want you to speak about the benefits of being vegetarian." Prabhupada refused to go. He said, "It's no big deal. Even vegetarian, different types of birds are vegetarian." So the mode of goodness, or activities in the mode of goodness, they're still binding. Text 5. Yagna dana tapak karma na tajam karyam evatat yajno danas chaiva havanani manisinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So this is very interesting. People think that in terms of religiosity, sacrifice, charity, and penance, this is to achieve something. Like I'm giving something and I'm going to receive in exchange. Of course, low platform, I want to become famous, or, I may directing money to a religion which has many members in it, then I'll secure their vote in the election, and then I'll be able to capture this office, and by which way I can make more money and whatever other things are going on. But charity, penance, acts of sacrifice, they're ultimately facilities that we have in this human form of life and in this material world to do activities of favorable devotional service. It's described earlier that such activities for a self-realized soul merge entirely into transcendence. So it's not that achieving self-realization, I stop doing these things. But on the mature stage, they become non-different than pure devotional service. Srila Prabhupada's purport: the yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society, which is actually the symptom of a pure devotee. They're always very much concerned for the welfare, not just to speak of human society, but all living entities. And we're saying in Prabhupada's prayer, he is very dear to Lord Krishna, Bhutale, on this earth, having taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. And what are his activities? He is distributing the pure message of Lord Chaitanya and defeating all that is against that pure teaching of Lord Chaitanya, pure, personal, intimate love of Godhead, which is the opposite impersonalism and voidism. The yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. And of course, real advancement is to go back home, back to Godhead. Prabhupada was hearing the new scientific theories, millions of years and big numbers and millions of years. You're going to be dead in 20 years or less. Who cares, Or, where is the knowledge of where do you go when you leave your body? And the responsibility that the human being must accept in this life to be able to have those questions answered. That is a leader, that he organizes everything so that everyone can get the proper information to become free from fear. Only the pure devotee is free from fear. Everyone else is in a state of fearfulness, anxiety, uncertainty. There are many purificatory processes for advancing a human being to spiritual life. Now, this purport is very interesting because it describes renunciation in terms of different statuses of life, which we'll see here is a very, very common and important consideration for practically everyone. The marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of these sacrifices. It is called Vivaha Yagna. So, I'll keep reading before I say anything more. Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order, or one who himself has graduated or gone beyond this contemplation, because he's achieved his mature self-realization and is engaged in his original relationship with Krishna, which is transcendental to any bodily relationship in this material world. So should such a person who has given up family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. Vivaha Yagna, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind so that it may be peaceful for spiritual advancement. So the marriage ceremony is actually very, very important because, what's it even say in Christianity? Holy matrimony. Because what it is, in essence, is a sacred agreement between the man and woman, the husband and wife, before God, that they will come together in holy matrimony and help each other to achieve what? The qualification to go back home, back to Godhead, which means that they live together and help each other dutifully. Children will come, and that is a facility for Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brasta Vijayate. Two types of excellent birth for a near soul who can go back home, back to Godhead by just using this one, the final birth, or even higher than that, a pure devotee to come down and, as we were hearing, to affect good for human society in a gigantic way. How fortunate were the mother and father of Srila Prabhupada. The mother and father of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was a great Paramahamsa link in our disciplic succession, one of the eternal associates of Radha and Krishna. He had 9 children in his married life. Or maybe it was 10. So, of course, in this Kali Yuga, at the present time, marriage has become practically a, what does he call it? Thing of the past. And it's described in Kali Yuga that people will come together simply for, what to speak of men and women. Now there's a whole homo-sex movement. Whatever, sex means I want my senses to be gratified. And our relationship is more or less based on you scratch my back and I scratch yours. And if you don't scratch it right, then I'll go find somebody who can scratch it better. That's not duty. And that's certainly not leading to a higher purpose. So, meant to regulate the human mind so that duty, this is my wife, this is my husband, I have very important responsibility. And in that way, the prompting of the material energy to work on your dormant material desires, to lust or to be attracted to anything and everyone out there, is controlled, because that particular attraction, which I'm regulating and minimizing, is just focused on one person, and vice versa. And the result is wonderful. The children grow up psychologically sound, etc., etc., etc. Now, broken homes or abused homes has become more the norm or the standard than. I was born in 1959, and my mother and father, they raised 3 children, and I was very, very happy. My mother died when I was a teenager, that's another thing, but they stayed together, and they were very dutiful with each other. That's back in the 60s. For most men, this Vivaha Yagna should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order. We see how Srila Prabhupada, he got his devotees, he initiated them and married them one day after the next. And some of his most important devotees were householder couples who spread the movement all over the world. Actually, it was the very enterprising Shyamasundar and Malati, Guru Das and Yamuna, and Mukunda and Janaki, who spread Krishna consciousness in London. And as we speak now, over at the Brooklyn Temple, they're celebrating the contribution of George Harrison to spreading Krishna consciousness. They met, befriended, and cultivated him to the point where he came out publicly and said, I'm a devotee of Krishna, and he donated for the printing of the Krishna book and bought the huge Bhaktivedanta mansion, which was still to the day European and UK headquarters of Krishna consciousness. Sannyasis should never associate with women. Association means associate for, enjoyment. You know, that buzz in the air, there's sexually surcharged atmosphere, that I'm speaking with the opposite sex because I get some enjoyment based on the bodily and subtle mental conception that I am the enjoyer. Sannyasis, for them, doing that is better to drink poison, or non-different than drinking poison, or committing suicide. So, how to not do that unless you have gone beyond that? Because your spiritual desire to be an object of enjoyment for Krishna, who's the supreme enjoyer, has become so much advanced and matured that Krishna, from his side, wants to reveal to you your spiritual identity so that you can always be fixed in that conception as one who gives pleasure to Krishna. Then you very easily dualistic, false, perverted reflection of man and woman stuff. But that is a lifetime of practice for most people. If you encourage premature renunciation, it's like stretching a rubber band. At a certain point, it'll break, and then going back into material activities and material desires, in many cases, proves to be even stronger as a reaction in many practitioners than if they had more gradually applied the principle of renunciation. Sannyasis should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life, a young man, or we'll add here, a young woman, should not accept a wife or husband in the marriage ceremony. All prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for the purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. Prabhupada came here with 40 rupees, and he came with a free ticket on a cargo ship that took 5 weeks. Could you imagine going from Calcutta to New York? Would you choose a mode of conveyance that took 5 weeks? Now they have, you can fly in one shot, Air India, in 16 hours, and 14 and a half hours going, 16 hours coming back. I can't handle that, being up in the air for so long myself, but some people, just take some knockout drugs and just go to sleep or something, and whatever. But anyway, so Prabhupada wasn't going to go on the boat back. He had health crisis, heart attacks, and he wanted to go back to India. Jayananda Prabhu, who had become his disciple just 3 months earlier, was so impressed with Srila Prabhupada that he gave him his 1967 life savings of $5,000, which is probably at least $50,000 or more by today's inflation calculation. And Prabhupada remembered that Jayananda had given me $5,000 and someone else had given him $1,000. So with that, he bought a ticket to go back to India. Prabhupada was remembering that with fondness. And when Jayananda passed away, the word reached Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was his servant secretary. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan in May of 1977. And Prabhupada broke down and cried, remembering his disciple, and said, he has gone back home, back to Godhead. And he's the only disciple that Prabhupada named that we should hold the commemorative Vaishnav Tirubhava disappearance anniversary for every day, every year. So on the Trayodasi of Vaishak Mas, the day before Nisringadev's appearance day. So giving charity to such a personality as Srila Prabhupada, and what to speak of when he really needed it, when he could really do something. What a glorious opportunity that is.
If charity is given to a suitable person as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. I'll read verse 6, even though this subject matter might have piqued some interest. This is a short purport, then we'll take questions. Text 6. Etani api tu karmani sangam tyakva phalani cha karta yaniti me parta nischitam atam uttamam. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Purport. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up, but sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. So that is why the guidance of elevated and mature and experienced devotees is so important to help us make the right choices at the right time in our life and in our advancement. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. I'll actually read verse 7 because this is a corresponding train of thought from Srila Prabhupada in this purport. Nisyasya tu sanyasya karmano nopapadyate mohatasya patiyagas tamasa prakritirtita. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. Work for material satisfaction must be given up, but activities which promote one to spiritual activity like cooking for the Supreme Lord and offering the food to the Lord and then accepting the food are recommended. It is said that a person in the renounced order of life should not cook for himself. Cooking for oneself is prohibited, but cooking for the Supreme Lord is not prohibited. Similarly, a sannyasi may perform a marriage ceremony to help his disciple in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. If one renounces such activities, it is understood that he is acting in the mode of darkness. Hare Krishna. So we read through verse 7. Any questions?
Sort of related question.
Okay.
It says in this age of Kali, the 5 acts are forbidden.
Right.
Offering of a horse, sacrifice, the offering of a cow and sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas,
Right.
offering of oblation of flesh to the forefathers, and a man begetting children of his brother's wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, Krishna seems to be giving instruction that we should take, become renounced, and that's sannyas, right? But in Kali Yuga it says we shouldn't accept the order of sannyas, and I was just a little bit confused about that.
Srila Prabhupada himself was in householder life, and his spiritual master appeared to him in dream. I think 3 times, or definitely twice. First, he was in the earlier mid stages of his family life. It was like, how can I do that? Another child is coming, and it would be a great injustice. And then later, when he was in his 50s, and his family, particularly his wife and eldest son, were not at all cooperative with his devotional desires to preach and try to fulfill the order of his spiritual master. He actually left home as a vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is retired life. So we were hearing how the elder spiritual master sannyasi can encourage a younger person who is probably lower stage of life, not less person or lower, but younger, that these are duties that you should do. I remember one time, years and years ago, one of my godbrothers was getting married, and he was put to Jayadvaita Maharaj, and he said, such and such is advancing. And we all thought, we're all in our 20s, that he's not advancing. He's like, oh, he's fanatical brahmacharis, right? And his spiritual master said, come, take sannyas. And he understood, Prabhupada, what actual following the rules and regulations was a painstaking affair. To live completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord without any taking recourse to business or any material strategy. That's real sannyas. And then finally, through one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, friendly godbrothers, he encouraged him that if you want to preach and follow the order of Guru Maharaj to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, you must accept the order of sannyas. It's necessary for preaching. So for higher purpose, what's described in Kali Yuga, one of the 5 things not to do, it supersedes everything. But one has to be very, very strong. But more important than being strong, one has to be very, very sincere. So when that encouragement was given from his godbrother, he didn't think, okay, I'll be a sannyasi and I'll live in Vrindavan or maybe in India and people will respect me and I'll get money and I can live comfortably or set up a temple and show the deity. But it's described that sannyas was the irrevocable mandate that I must go to the West and preach. Otherwise, for Prabhupada, sannyas had no meaning. Actually, one of his godbrothers, who was the legal head of or property owner of his spiritual master's mission, he said, that you should first come to me because I'm the actual head of the Gaudiya Math institution, and I should study you and watch you for some time and approve you're taking sannyas. It's like you have to pass the corporate checklist, before you're given the promotion, And then he kind of chastised Prabhupada, saying that you should do this, the thing that you failed to do for so many years. Anyone who is acting independently of the Gaudiya Math is acting erroneously and illogically. You come and be in our main headquarters in Calcutta. We have airy, well-lit rooms. There'll be no inconvenience. Everything will be provided. And as for publishing books, that shall be decided amongst ourselves which books. And going to the West, we have to see, and nobody should act independently. And we don't have the funds to do it. Prabhupada wasn't in the slightest encouraged. Actually, that godbrother he approached first and got that response. So when the other godbrother practically forced him, unwillingly he accepted. And so then when Prabhupada came here, what was he doing? He was giving sannyas to young men. Vishnu John Swami was given sannyas in 1970. He was 22 years old, for example. And he was so sincere that in 1976, Vishnu John Swami was a hippie living in a nudist ranch north of San Francisco. He had a common law wife and I think a daughter. And she didn't want to go on to become a devotee. Prabhupada asked, the story of Chota Haridas was revealed to devotees in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, maybe just a year earlier in the Ancha Lila. And Chota Haridas was a sannyasi, and he was implicated in looking at intentions, and Lord Chaitanya banished him from his association. And even with his greatest associates begging to reinstate him, he absolutely refused. And this devotee, Chota Haridas, he took it so seriously. It's described in the Shastra that the sannyasi who's had illicit fall down, the only atonement is to take his life. And that's what he did. He went to the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna at Allahabad. Is the sacred place where right now Kumbh Mela is taking place. It's a place where nectar from the churning of the milk ocean between the demons and the demigods, some drops had fallen on that spot. So anyone who bathes there in the month of Magh, in every 12, every 144 years, they'll achieve liberation. Prabhupada went there in 1971, which was a big one, 1971. And the devotees asked him, Prabhupada, is it true that by bathing here we get liberation? He said, yes, but we've not come here for liberation. We've come here to preach pure devotional service. He said, they will try by so many means to become liberated, but we will become liberated simply by taking prasad. He popped a sweet ball in his mouth. So Vishnu John, he innocently asked this question of Prabhupada in a morning walk in Mayapur in 1976. And he said, what is it? Not hypothetically, but he didn't say anything about him. Prabhupada, if a sannyasi does like this, what is the atonement? He said that, and he shrunk away, and he disappeared. And later reports were that a Western sannyasi had paid. There's people you can pay. They put you in a boat and they sign a declaration. When Prabhupada heard that, he said, he might have even just thought of his former wife and child, what to speak of having anything to do. He was 28 years old. And many devotees said that Vishnu John Swami, his Kirtan and his pure devotional mood, ISKCON was never the same after that. Prabhupada lamented. And there's the example of Prabhupada gave sannyas to many young men, and they couldn't maintain their vows. One such person was Madhudvisa Prabhu. And he did wonderful service, practically speaking, lifting the Australian Hare Krishna Yatra to unprecedented heights. He wasn't the first devotee who went there. It was actually Bali Mardan, Upendra, some others. And Prabhupada was so much pleased with what Madhudvisa had done. And he had gone away, he had taken a wife, had a child, but stayed in Krishna consciousness. He came and visited Prabhupada with Shrutakirti Prabhu, who was Prabhupada's servant for 2 years. I recommend everyone read Shrutakirti's book, What is the Difficulty? 175 antidotes of his service to Srila Prabhupada. Very wonderful. And Prabhupada said, you remain as Grihastha. There is no difficulty, whatever ashram that is suitable for you. And he wrote a purport for Madhudwis in the 8th canto about the Gajendra being attacked by the crocodile in the water. One should not give up the fight and go away. That the elephant, being a creature of the land, was fighting a long time in the water and was becoming exhausted. Whereas the crocodile or alligator, being a creature of the water, he was getting food, nourishment, and sensual encouragement because the water is his natural habitation. So he carried on fighting and grew stronger and stronger. So this we might take a lesson, which ashram we should choose to become more strong in. But ultimately, there is an ashram after the Grihastha ashram, if one accepts it, called the Varnashram, the Vanaprastha ashram, or retired life. Just as sensual and physical attraction is very strong in youth, puberty, teenage, early mid-20s, natural time to get married, natural time to have children, because then when the children become 20 or 25 years old, how old will you be? 45, 50. 50 is taken as the time to retire from family life. Certainly not to have more children. And because physical attraction is less and less, that's built-in obsolescence of old age. You're not handsome and beautiful as you used to be. Why? Because you're meant to go internal and understand the beauty of the soul, the beauty of self-realization, not be caught up in the beauty of external beauty of the body. So everything has to be done at the right time and in the right stages. But for one who has actually achieved some realization about the glories of pure devotional service and is engaged in the preaching work, then let's say, it's described that attraction or desire for sex is like an itch that, I just want to scratch it. But, you scratch an itch too much, what happens? It becomes inflamed and becomes more itchy. Or even worse, blood will come out, or you'll make the skin raw or make a big problem. Better to tolerate the minor itching and not scratch it, and what will happen, Krishna will give you the strength, will give you the realization, and you can overcome it for good and for all. That is superior. So everyone should be given fighting chance, given the right tools, equipment, the right facility to give it the best possible try you can. And that is for everyone, because then the Grihastha, it's not that, okay, Prabhupada said Grihastha ashram is a license for sex. Like you have a sex license, like a fishing license, whereas driving license. But then you become Grihastha Brahmachari, because that training of controlling the mind and senses in your student life, in your youthful life, then you will be a very, very good and strong Grihastha. And in that sense, we say Grihastha Brahmachari, that the Brahmachari, he's not living with a woman, and if he's following the rules and regulations properly, then bravo to his self-control and his regulating the mind and senses, which maybe the neophyte who's wearing the brahmachari, is in the brahmachari status, isn't able to do. But best is to engage in the preaching mission. One time Jayananda Prabhu was asked, how do you make spiritual advancement? He said, I don't know, Prabhu, I'm too busy doing devotional service to try to think about it. For someone for someone who's thinking of Krishna and how to serve him best 24 hours a day, it is sure that such a person, Krishna, will reach the supreme and imperishable abode by the Lord's special grace. I become the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So, Prabhupada came and he introduced the Sankirtan movement, and the activity for everyone was to go out on Harinam Sankirtan for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and less hours on Sunday, and have a big Sunday feast. And people were devotees were in ecstasy. So I say, from my own experience, that contemplating these questions, give yourself an opportunity to engage in the Harinam Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda with full vigor and enthusiasm. Get a taste for being Priyakritama, the dearmost servant of the Lord, or serving those who are the dearmost servants of the Lord, like Srila Prabhupada, distributing. There was one very nice book that was made years ago. I don't know if it's still in print. It was called Bhaktivedanta Sandesh, giving the beautiful suite of Srila Prabhupada's teachings to the people. Give your time and energy to that as much as you can. Then try to think about these things. Hare Krishna. All right, we've gone over time by some minutes. Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Lord Nityananda, whose appearance day is tomorrow. And all glories to Lord Varaha Dev, whose appearance day is today.